At this point, I'd like to introduce Matt Stull. He's at University Hospital, Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. So he has to deal with a lot of snow. For those of us in Florida, we don't miss that. And he's going to talk about how to do recruitment, because one of the things that a lot of chiefs have to do is recruit the residents for the following year. So please welcome Dr. Stull.
Okay, good morning, gang. Can everyone hear me, even in the back? Henry, you can hear me? Cool. Okay. Well, good morning. Like Dr. Holland said, my name is Matt Stull. I'm an EM intensivist and one of the assistant program directors at University Hospitals in Cleveland. And I'm honestly so honored to be here with you all today, because this is literally my favorite topic to talk about. There are so many things that are challenging about being chief. And there are so many things probably on your radar right now that you're like, just tell me how to make a schedule. Can Dr. Young just make the schedule for me, right? But at the end of the day, this is probably something you're sort of saying like, I've got like 6 months before I have to worry about this. Wrong. Recruitment starts today and is every day of your chief year, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go along. I wish someone would pay me to just recruit residents all day. My program director will not. I've asked a couple times. But I have no disclosures. But what I really want to get out of this next couple minutes is, what do you want, right? I recognize I got a couple slides in mind of things that I think are really important pearls for you to be thinking about. But I want to hear what you all want to hear about recruitment. And hopefully I'm not totally off base.
This is the audience participation part.
You did not want to hear about recruitment today, is what I'm hearing. Not a single question about how chiefs engage with recruitment.
This is the most shy chief resident group I have ever seen.
I've done this for a couple of years. Never have I not had a question. But okay, yeah. Okay. Good. Okay, so high value targets, the people that you're just in love with, right? That you want to get there. How do you engage them?
Probably like the opposite of that is like residents or candidates that the leadership seems to really love and really is not going to be vibing with the residents. How do you kind of deal with that and get that across to leadership?
That's a great question, right? That is incredibly challenging when you come to, dealing with your residency leadership team and saying like, I hate this person, we love them, but they got a 270 and 270, right? Yeah.
How can you be more innovative when these medical students are going through dinner after dinner and make it different? And
okay, so making those sort of pre-interview dinners seem less of the same?
What's the best way to evaluate a candidate within the 15 minutes that were allotted for the interviews?
Okay, that's a tough one. That's a good question too. Lots of good questions. Not going to actually tell you any of those answers. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, sir.
We're a smaller program in New Jersey, so we struggle to get our name out there.
New Jersey's my home.
How do we, outside of interview season and like med students rotating, how do we get our name out there?
Yeah, getting your name out there, publicity. Great question. Yes, ma'am. Or, sir, yeah. Okay. So, getting them to the dinner is challenging. Yeah, butts and seats are important. Okay, good. Yes, ma'am, one last question.
Framing, if you live somewhere like southeastern Minnesota where it's going to be -30, how do you recruit people through that? Because that's one of our deterrents.
Luckily, Matt works in Cleveland, and they get butt cold there too, so.
I mean, Believe Land is a hell of a place, I'll tell you what, but it is challenging. You're right, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So great questions. I think hopefully...
There's one more, Matt.
Oh, yes.
Branding for your program?
Yeah. That was a plant because he's my chief and he knows what I'm going to talk about. So thank you, young one, because I will talk a lot about branding during this presentation. Great questions, guys. Keep them coming. I prefer not to, as my chiefs will tell you, that I love to hear myself talk, but I would rather engage with you all about exactly what you want to get out of this. So please keep asking the questions as we go. Let's talk about the reality of the situation. How many of you have heard someone, a faculty member, maybe even a former chief resident in your program say, oh God, if I applied today, I would never get in? Then you haven't talked to enough faculty, let's be honest. EM is changing, guys. It's a different specialty than it once was. It's a different specialty, heck, than when you probably joined it. We are becoming more and more competitive. Yay for us, but it is also a huge challenge for us. We are talking about this constantly at all the national meetings, CORD, and things like this, of like, it's a real headache when you've got 10 or 100 applicants for every one spot. That was the ratio my program had this year. We've got 10 spots, had over 1,000 applications. How do you do this, right? And you guys as chiefs probably aren't the people screening each and every one of those applications. You get it to the interview day, but we'll talk about that. This is the sort of the national statistics from the NRMP this past 2018, which is the most recent data we have. 99.4% of EM spots filled in 2018. Not leaving a lot of room for the chaff from the wheat, right? So it's hard. This is really a hard process. And once upon a time when I was applying, and I'm not that old, I promise you this, I was told all I needed to do was rank 8 programs and I'd be fine. Now we're up to 13. So you have to, the average applicant, we're not talking about the below average person. The average applicant must interview and rank 13 programs to be pretty assured that they're going to match at a program. That's a heck of a statement. That tells you how competitive this is. So it means that we are all sweating a little bit about this, right? And the problem is this is becoming more and more challenging, and a lot of programs have stuck their head in the sand. A lot of programs just like hope it's gonna go okay. We've been doing this interview thing for a long time. We're just gonna keep talking to people when they come in, and it'll be great, right? So a lot of us neglect this aspect of things, and I'll tell you, this is the thing that you must start focusing on day one of your chief year, because it's so easy to get sort of lost in the process. So hope is not a solution. Why? Because we are in a profession that is super weird. Nobody else trains for as long as we do, and then literally puts their fate in the hands of some magical matching algorithm. Have you ever talked to like normal human beings about what you just went through? They're shocked and appalled, and yet this is what we live through every single year. It's an incredibly anxiety-producing time for our lives, right? Many of us probably remember it a little bit, but like we don't remember the real bad times. The 2 a.m. writing that personal statement because ERAS opens tomorrow and I just need it to be done. I like to help people. Everybody says the same damn thing in those, right? So, you know, be careful about getting too worked up about this, but the applicants are incredibly anxious. And at the end of the day, though, recruitment is truly a matter of perspective. Right? And I love this cartoon because it's so true. It defines what we all need to be thinking about. Because at the end of the day, the recruit in the boat, sitting out there all alone, just hoping to make landfall, is sitting there saying, oh my gosh, like thank God land, right? But you, as the program, are sitting on that little island, and your future ain't much if you don't have a new recruit class, right? If you don't fill, imagine that schedule. It gets real bad when there's only 9 when there should be 10, right? And so it gets really, really challenging. And for a long time, I think programs have actually seen themselves sitting on the top of a hill and able to sort of look down on these pleading masses. We have to change the paradigm. It's not about us as leaders. It is about them. And you will see I use my language incredibly precisely. I never talk about interview day. Talk about recruitment day, because I am recruiting every single person that comes through the doors of my institution. Maybe not highly, but every single one of them should be made to feel as though they are a valuable addition, and I want them there. Clearly, after the screening process, I thought there was something about that human being worth talking to. Sometimes it's because they have rodeo clown in their hobbies, and that human being is getting an interview. No matter what their score is, because I just want to meet them, honestly. But keep in mind, recruitment is about them. You cannot stand on the hill and hope that they come to you anymore. We've just got too many applicants, just too many people to fill those spots. And it's too hard, quite honestly, at the end of the day. So, this is my motto, because Retta and Parks and Rec. Treat yourself, right? But what I really want to change this to is brand yourself, right? Because what you must understand is that we've been making mistakes in medicine for a long, long time because we think we are unique. We are because we match, but that's about the only unique thing about us. Business has taught us a lot, and so what I'm going to talk about for the next little while is sort of what business has taught us about recruiting and retaining talent, okay? And so you've got to think about your brand. And this is a great article. It is in the Google Drive. If anybody wants to read it, it's 3 pages. I know you all don't have a lot of time. I encourage you to read this article by Chappelle in 2018 in the Journal of GME. It's phenomenally sort of basic to help even us Luddites in medicine understand that there are some principles in business that are really cross-translatable. And that is how you brand yourself. The first is the piece of the internal strategy, which is the idea of a brand identity. What is it you all think your program is, and what makes it special? The external perception is known as brand image, right? This is the thought process that goes through the mind of every applicant or stakeholder. Be thoughtful about this. There are more stakeholders in this process than just applicants, right? So Little Pearl, for those of you that were like, I don't know how to get human beings to my shop because I'm a new name, and how am I going to, fight against Harvard. It's a name, right? It's a beautiful name. Don't get me wrong. It's a great training program. But man, they can just sort of relax and be like, come to us. Newer, younger, smaller programs need to think about this thing. Is the only stakeholder the applicant? I would argue no. Clerkship directors have a huge say in where you go and where you apply, right? Many of you, if you're like me, so I went to the University of Cincinnati for my residency. I had never heard of that place before I applied there. And it was because my clerkship director was like, this seems like a place for you. I was like, okay, to add it to the list. Like, it's only $40 more or something like that, right? And then, sure enough, I ended up there and loved it. Had a great experience there, and it was right for me. But it was because of my advisors that really helped me make that sense. So make sure that your strategy doesn't just engage the applicant, but also thinks about other stakeholders, okay? Brand positioning is this idea of fixing the discrepancy that exists between the idea that people have or the brand image of your program versus the brand identity that you all think you bring to the table. We'll talk about that in a second. And then brand experience, that is simple. That's what the applicant actually experiences, aka I think of it as really interview day or recruitment day, okay? So, why is branding important? I'm pretty basic, as you can see. These are brands that dominate my life, quite honestly. But you can see I'm not quite driving the attending car that I dreamed of yet. But seriously, though, the brands are vital. We live our lives based on brands. And all of these are brands that I use regularly. And the reason Jif is in the middle, why? Because when you think of Jif, what comes to mind? What brand image? Okay, peanut butter, good. Okay, you know what it is. Choosy moms choose Jif, right? I remember, I was offended by that slogan as a young child. That's when I knew I was really into the social determinants of health, because it was like, some moms just can't afford it, and that's unfair. Anyway, point is, my mom was a choosy mom, so she chose Jif. That is a hugely powerful brand, right? Is that if you care about your kid's development, you'll choose this peanut butter. Peter Pan, right? No. So all of these, if you think about, and we could go through every brand out there, right? If you think about Lexus or Jaguar, it's not Jaguar, it's Jaguar, but they pronounce it Jaguar because that's a luxury brand, right? It changes the way you think about things. So how is if I threw your residency logo up here, how would you be thinking about it? Right? And how do you think of yourselves? You have to define your brand. That is your brand identity. How many of you have thought of this before? How many of you could encapsulate in one line the identity of your residency? Oh. Yeah, if you three don't raise your hands, we're in trouble. Anyway, but we just went through this workshop a couple weeks ago with my team, but at the end of the day, this is vital. Right? Because this is literally the perception of your program. And so if you all, as the leaders of your program, cannot articulate what your brand is, how the heck are all the schmoes that are interviewing? Because let's be honest, who else interviews besides you guys? The PD, the APD, they probably know what they're trying to target, but how many of you have like the research director interview on interview day, right? And how many of you think you're like powerhouse research institutions? Yeah, none of you, right? Yeah, or there's the Harvard team's like, yes. Truthfully, but yet that person sells every applicant on, what do you want to do for research? Because we have a robust you've got like one IRB happening right now, and it ain't even, ours is bed bug research. No, we are not a research powerhouse. Let's call a spade a hoe. And that is what we are. We shouldn't be selling ourselves on our research capabilities if that's not what we're actually focused on. Because what happens? Then we trick some schlub into matching with us who's like, I'm going to be an R01 funded researcher. And you're like, I can't help you. My job is to train you to be a great clinician. That's what we want our residents to focus on. That's sort of the thing. Does that make sense to everybody? Word to the wise. Be careful if your brand identity is, we're the Swiss Army knife of programs. That ain't an identity. That isn't, right? That's the problem. So many of us think that we train good clinicians. That's what the definition of residency is, y'all. Be careful. This is the problem. So many residencies sell themselves as, we're the jack of all. So this table's going to get stared at too much. We're the jack of all trades, the master of none. Yeah, okay, that's emergency medicine by definition, thanks. Right? So be careful about how generic you are. And what about your program? If you're going to say you're truly the Swiss Army knife, what about your program is special? How does that define you from the program right down the street or across the country? Right? Because I hate to tell you, half this room is in a relatively under-desirable place to be. I know because I live there. Right? I get it. 6 months of the year, it's gray and snowy. How do I recruit people to Cleveland to believe it's a good place to go? We brand ourselves. So what we're going to do for the next 5 minutes, wow, time's ticking, 4 minutes is going to be everyone at their tables with their co-chiefs should sit down and write down what their brand identity is. And if I can, I would suggest you pick 2 to 3 concepts. Either write it out as a single sort of mission, we aim to train blah, or maybe 2 or 3 phrases or words that really define your program. Okay? So 4 minutes. Take it away. Wrapping it up. Got a couple things in mind? How many of you are Swiss Army knives? God, I hope 0. How many of you are jacks of all trade, masters of none? Okay, so let's pull it back. Anybody want to share what they came up with? Sharing is caring. Nobody wants to share? I'm not going to take it from you 3. Where's my Michigan table? Sorry, I know you're... oh, there you are, Carrie. Hey, what do you got? Oh, sorry.
All right. Okay, excellent. One of the things that we sell most frequently on is our 3 different training sites, where we have, it's a well-rounded experience where you have the resources of a University of Michigan, a quaternary care center, but you also spend a significant amount of time in a community center, and we have a county site, and just kind of that unique experience for people who maybe aren't sure whether they want to do academics or community and things like that.
Okay. Great. That's a phenomenal answer. Thank you for volunteering / voluntolding. How many of you had that as one of your sort of core tenets of diversity of training? We really do a variety of sites. Look around. Fair number. Not saying, though it's not everyone, which is good, but we have to be thoughtful. It's really hard to differentiate your brand as a result of that. So just be thoughtful. Anything else? Anybody else want to share? The question, you see, yeah, once we get going, they just start coming, right?
Hi, I'm Andrew. We're in LSU New Orleans. So we don't have like a perfect statement, but we're kind of coming together with like a brand of having like socially conscious positions, training in like a particularly unique community, and that our integration in the community through Katrina, through all the years, kind of makes us like a standout, unique program, especially as we're about to have another program in the city that we're going up against.
I think that's really good. You're leveraging your heritage, right? You're leveraging what has happened locally to make your program a little bit more standoutish, which I think is a great plan. And I certainly hear that social consciousness with your program. Anybody else sort of do social determinants of health, social consciousness, service orientation? Not as many. Okay, good. That certainly differentiates a program. Anybody else? One last one? No? That's cool. Okay. Well, so why do I make you do this? Why is because it's really hard as a chief resident for 1 year to change your program, right? How are you all going to look at your program and make a change when you've got 80 hours a week of scheduling to do and have to make sure conference runs on time and schedule this and schedule that and oh yeah, there's that whiny resident over there that you have to deal with, right? How are you going to change the culture of your program if that's something you truly believe needs to happen? Strategery, right? And this exercise is just that. It's strategery. It is literally what you guys need to do as chiefs is come up with a unified message, what you believe your program stands for, what it means under your leadership, okay? And then you need to live it. You need to implement it. I hate this quote, but I love this quote. Like, it's so true. It's just so ubiquitous. You have to be the change in your program, right? This is the opportunity you have to leverage. Because right now, your program isn't thinking like this necessarily. A lot of them probably haven't had these conversations. You have these conversations here, up front, early on, and go to your PD, APD, chair, leadership, and say, hey, this is what we think defines our program. There may be a little bit of give and take there. They may be like, not that, but yes, this, right? And so really be thoughtful about this, because if you do this well now, you will have a platform on which to not only eliminate some of the work, because if it isn't in your mission, we ain't doing it this year. Right? It's easy to get bogged down with a little bit of this, I got to do a little bit of that, I got to do a little bit of this. But at the end of the day, a mission statement gives you purpose. It gives you direction, and this is what a lot of chiefs don't do. So make sure you guys define whether it's a mission statement, a vision statement, or just 3 tenets that defines your emergency medicine residency program. Whatever it is, I encourage you to be thinking about this, because it's the only way you are going to truly change the program from within in 1 year. But you can make a huge change in that year. So your brand image, I mentioned this briefly at the start. What is that? That's the external image. It's the what people think about your brand. Does anyone know what people think about their brand? It's hard to get to, isn't it? Because you're sitting there and right, the job of that 4th year AI is to be like, God, I want to come here. Right? Like, the ones that don't are just terrible, and everyone knows that they don't want to come there, and you don't want them there either. But for the most part, they're going to lie to you up and down and tell you how great your program is. We all know how to play the game. We all got to where we are. We played the game. Right? So what you actually have to do is doing a little research, doing a little digging about your brand image. Reach out to people. Right? Really, truly reach out to people. We do a rather robust evaluation of our interview day and our post-interview process. All of our folks who were in our top X number of spots that didn't match with us get a rather extensive survey asking them, hey, why not? If the answer is, it's Cleveland, I can't fix that. Okay, it's good, probably a good thing, right? But if it's that APD was just a fill in the blank, been called worse things by better people, but then I need to change my attitude, right? Or somebody needs to fix something, okay? It helps us really get a sense. The other way you can do this research, what did y'all use to get into residency? StudentDoctor.net, right? Or org, or whatever the hell it is. Look at it. Take a look at what it says about your program on there. There are times that programs have made massive changes. I think our program is one of them. Our program was super community focused within the last couple of years. 3 years ago, we said no. We're focused on academics. We're focused on training really intense, high-level doctors that can care for any kind of patient in a variety of settings. We changed our brand. Well, guess what? Student doctor still says that program is community focused. If you want to do research, don't go there. We have some huge researchers on our department now. We need to sort of fix that brand image that people have. And the way you do that is brand positioning, right? Communicate, communicate, communicate. So we really think about the way we go out and recruit residents. We think about everything we say on our interview day, right? We don't talk about ourselves as Swiss Army knives. We make sure that that's something that not a single one of our interviewers is going to say to people. Because when they do, it defeats the purpose of our branding, right? We decided that we had 3 core tenets in our residency. And those 3 core tenets are something that we message constantly. We message it to our tour guides so that they hit on that as they go. We message it to our interviewers. Because what I don't want them to say is, yeah, research powerhouse. No R01s, that's hard to say, right? Exactly. My research director will say that. I'm sure they'll say how great of a research institution we are. And we are. But it's not the central tenet of what I'm training my residents to do. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? So, brand experience. This is the interview day itself, or the recruitment day. Okay? And I think about this carefully because, guys, don't they all look the same? Honestly, how many of you had a markedly different experience on a specific interview day? Anybody? There's like a half a hand over here. Did you have a special?
Our residency program does an interview where we put like a VR, like a virtual reality goggles on students, and we make them like defuse a bomb. I don't know if you've ever.
Okay. Yeah. Diffuse bomb. That's interesting.
Exactly, right?
I hope bomb diffusion is one of your tenets, because that is pretty darn impressive.
Exactly.
But that's awesome. I mean, right?
Memorable.
Those are the things you guys need to start thinking about. Guess what everyone does? A tour, some interviews, an information session about the curriculum. Someone comes in and is like, this city's a nice place to live, unless it's like San Diego, and they're like, and then, oh, by the way, we take you out for some beers or food or something like that the night before. Everyone does the same damn thing. How can you break out of the model? How can you break out of the box? So, this time I'm going to give you 2 minutes. This time I want you to talk to people that are not at your program and talk about a different thing that you want to intervene on in your application day. Some new innovation that is different, that you've either seen somewhere else, that you guys do, that you think really makes you special. It sounds like VR bomb diffusion is going to be the talk of the town. But I want you to do this for the next 2 minutes. Go. Yes. Yep. One minute left. 1 minute. Okay, gonna bring it back. Gonna bring it back. Running out of time. Got 50 more slides. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Pull it back. Anybody want to offer a suggestion? Something that they talked about at their table? If not, I'll just pick another place that I trained at and make those chiefs tell me what they came up with. Pittsburgh? Any Pitt chiefs here? No? Oh, okay, well. There's someone pointing. Is there Pittsburgh here? I went to med school there, sorry. No? Okay. Cincy? God, I did not go to great programs. There's a Cincy person? Cincy, what'd you come up with?
So I'm Andrew from Cincinnati. So one of our, I didn't talk about this explicitly with my table, but one of our unique experiences is our flight program. So we sort of sell that a lot during our interview day and go through the helicopter and things like that, because that's a huge part of sort of our workload as a resident as well. So.
Okay, so anything how many people sell flight as a cool thing that they do? Uh-oh, Cincy. So how are you going to make it different?
I think so. For us, it's integrated into our ED clinical shifts.
Sure.
So I am scheduled to work at a helicopter base, which is I think different from some other programs. So that's a lot of people, not all of our residents, but a lot of people come to Cincinnati knowing that they want to do EMS and want to do helicopter medicine. So.
Okay. So selling it by having, the medical director come and talk about what it's like to fly, because he's a big nerd and still loves to fly decades in, right?
Absolutely.
I know him quite well. I adore him. But anyway, okay, good. I don't think we have time for too much else, so let's keep moving, okay? So the brand experience. Who are these people? You know them quite well, right? On the right, it's LeBron selling Nikes, like they're going out of style. The left or right, what I can't. Whatever. This came out in the Super Bowl, right? Did anybody watch the? This is beautiful branding. Stella Artois, right? Are you fancy AF or are you a slob? Either way, drink our beer, right? And that is something that I think is a really neat thing. And so what I'm trying to show with this slide is brand ambassadors, right? You all have to be your brand ambassadors, because you cannot expect everyone's going to embrace the 3 things you come up with or the single vision statement that you have in your program or anything like that. But you truly have to live it, you have to show it, and you have to be the people that sort of emphasize this change in your program. Because your program directors aren't getting this talk, you are. You're the leaders of your program. And so I just want to remind you that you truly are the cultural ambassadors of the program. You are the people that set the tone, and I think that that cannot be undervalued as chiefs, right? That cannot be undervalued. And recruitment season is rough. It's a long time. It's extra work on your part as well as the faculty's. You have no idea how many hours I spend on recruitment during this sort of worst months of the year, right? It's holiday season, it's gray, at least in Cleveland, it's snowy, it's not exactly my favorite time of year, and I'm adding that additionally to my plate. So be the people that really usher the change. One piece of advice, actually going back to something someone asked earlier, is what happens when the residency leadership team disagrees? What happens when we have someone that we feel very strongly about and they disagree? Guys, you got to find your voice. Today is the day to start finding your voice as rising chiefs. You've got to become comfortable speaking to your program in just plain English, which is, this is a human being that will not fit in our program. Articulate the reason why, not just because, I didn't like their look. They didn't, you really need to articulate it, but find your voice. Your program chose you for a reason. The most important thing that you can do is be a mouthpiece for the residents. And in our program, if a resident tells me that this is the wrong human being, usually I need to hear it from either people I respect, like my chiefs, or more than one resident, I will sink that person. I will sink them. It's not worth disrupting the gestalt, the experience of our residency for you guys to be like, we hate that person, and they showed up on day 1. That's a mistake on my part, not a mistake on yours, right? Well, I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to touch on this very briefly. This is the best leadership book I have ever read, and I want you to just sort of work it into the presentation somewhat serendipitously. It's by Laconi. He writes fables about leadership, and the book is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. If your team is dysfunctional, It's probably due to one of these 5 reasons, and this is the sort of evidence you need to show it. I encourage you all to read it because there is no year, leadership position, anything like that, other than you being a chief. There's no way. When have you ever had to be a 3-headed, 4-headed, 2-headed monster? Never. But you do for this year. And this will teach you to be a leadership team unlike anything else. I encourage you all to take a look at it. I think when you're struggling with recruitment, it is often because of some of the challenges at the bottom of the pyramid. You either don't trust one another, right? Maybe we should do trust falls next year. Or it's because you actually fear conflict. Don't fear conflict behind closed doors. Be open to it. Be open to conflict with your PDs and APDs, as long as it's a respectful conflict. Because conflict drives change, and it drives better programs, okay? Last but not least, learning good recruitment skills is a lifelong leadership lesson. Who continues to recruit? My chair, my vice chair, my PD. If I want to evolve as a leader in academic medicine, I have to know how to recruit people well. So don't neglect this portion of your year, okay? So, what did we learn today? It's all a matter of a perspective, right? Island, boat. It's not just about you on a hill as the program picking these people. They pick you. It's about recruitment. Brand yourself, right? Make sure you know what your vision and mission is going to be. Find your voice. Speak for the little guys in your program. Make sure that you are representing the residency to your residency leadership team when you are selecting residents. It's vital. It's absolutely vital. So your homework is to go home with your leadership team, sit down, and talk about your identity. Talk about the vision statement, the mission statement that you came up with. Talk about the 3 pillars of your program, whatever it is, but actually engage with them on this topic. It's so easy to go back to your program and be like, we got to get this schedule done. And yes, you do. Yes, you do. But I promise you this will be a lot more fruitful of a conversation and a real powerful conversation if you have it. And suggest one of the new implementing sort of brand experiences piece. Okay? Thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate the attention. And if you have any more specific questions, I'll see you this afternoon at the expert consultation.